court has temporarily stopped new gun restrictions on Superior. So what does that mean for the other cities nearby who passed the same laws?
This uptick is historic.
A month after Roe v. Wade is overturned, an abortion rights group in Colorado says it's seeing demand it's never seen before. As the metro area grows, the second largest school district in the state says enrollment is shrinking. It's getting so bad they're shuttering schools. And we'll check in with the hole-iest street in Metro Denver. There are no churches, just a bunch of sinkholes. I'm Steve Stager in for Kyle Clark. This is next. New gun restrictions are now on hold in the town of Superior. Last month, the city in Boulder County was one of 4 that passed stricter gun laws limiting access to certain weapons and gun accessories. Using a recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling, a Colorado gun rights group sued and has now earned a temporary stop preventing Superior from enforcing some of the new laws. Our Marshall Zellinger wanted to know what that means for the 3 other cities.
The town of Superior has to stop enforcing 2 gun restrictions recently passed. On June 7th, Town Council passed a new ordinance that banned the use of illegal weapons and certain assault weapons. The town defined illegal weapons as an assault weapon, large-capacity magazine, rapid-fire trigger activator, blackjack, gas gun, metallic knuckles, gravity knife, or switchblade knife. It defined assault weapons as most semi-automatic centerfire rifles and pistols. Rocky Mountain gun owners sued the town, and a federal judge granted a temporary restraining order preventing Superior from enforcing those 2 provisions.
Just because you call something illegal versus legal in a statute doesn't answer the constitutional question under the Second Amendment.
We asked constitutional law attorney Jessica Smith about the temporary restraining order and trickle-down effect to other cities. The judge relied in part on last month's U.S. Supreme Court decision that struck down a New York City law, preventing someone with a gun from getting a concealed carry license unless they demonstrated a specific need for that gun outside the home.
The way that the U.S. Supreme Court has interpreted the Second Amendment and the direction that it's taken the Second Amendment, it is more difficult than it used to be to ban particular types of guns, particular types of accessories or weapons.
Boulder, Louisville, and Lafayette all passed similar gun restrictions. Those cities were not named in the lawsuit and can continue to enforce their gun restrictions. Those cities and Superior could also start to try to rewrite their laws based on the concerns the judge wrote about in the temporary restraining order.
If Superior wants to fix its code, it can, and it could potentially moot this lawsuit and this decision.
The town of Superior referenced the Boulder King Super shooting as one reason it wanted to enforce new gun restrictions. The judge wrote, the court is sympathetic to the town's stated reasoning. However, the court is unaware of historical precedent that would permit a governmental entity to entirely ban a type of weapon that is commonly used by law-abiding citizens for lawful purposes. Even though those cities could rewrite the laws, it's not clear what might get past a federal judge. Boulder's mayor told me the city attorney is reviewing this. Superior's mayor told me that town will discuss in executive session, and a Louisville spokeswoman told me there's no discussion right now in Louisville to relook at the laws.
Can't help but think, you had a Supreme Court ruling on guns. We just saw a Supreme Court ruling on abortion, and Colorado has a state statute. Would that impact anything in the abortion realm?
So I asked Jessica Smith about that, thinking the same thing. And because there's no federal protection of abortion, this wouldn't come into play. You've got the federal protection of the Second Amendment, so you can't do things that infringe on that right, according to this federal judge looking at it that way. You don't have that same issue with abortion access.
All right. Marshall Zellinger, thank you. Well, 1 month after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, groups that help women access abortions in Colorado are dealing with unprecedented demand. Cobalt runs a fund that provides financial assistance for abortions, both for the procedure and the travel to get to the procedure. The group says that their caseload has tripled in the last month. 95% of the people that they've helped with travel, hotels, and childcare are coming from out of state. Most are coming from Texas.
The increase in need means that Coloradans are also having to compete for these appointment slots and for, the same resources, because the infrastructure in Colorado was not built to be able to sustain an entire region of the country.
Cobalt gave out $2,000 from its Practical Support Fund in 2020 to pay for travel, childcare, and the like. Last year, they gave out $6,000. In the last month, Cobalt used $60,000 from that fund to help women seeking abortions in Colorado. Cobalt says that their caseload is going up so much because aid groups operating in our neighboring states are on pause while they try to figure out what help they can actually legally provide. The group thinks that the demand for aid and appointments in Colorado won't go down anytime soon. An independent group overseeing changes at the Aurora Police Department has issued its first report. It shows the department's progress in following the consent decree, a legal agreement the city signed to fix policies after the death of Elijah McClain. The Independent Monitor says the city and police department have been extremely cooperative in following the mandates in the consent decree. The group is looking at how APD is addressing racial bias in policing and improving its review of use of force incidents. This report talked specifically about an incident in 2021 where officers tackled and tased a man during a traffic stop. The group found that the Force Review Board's assessment should have been more critical of that and demonstrated a need for deeper investigations into the primary officer involved. This is one of the 12 reports that this team will release over the next several years. They will hold a town hall meeting on August 9th to get feedback and answer some questions from the community. Colorado's second largest school district has more than 27,000 empty seats. Jeffco Public Schools abruptly closed 2 elementary schools at the end of the school year. Now the district is working on plans to close more. Jeffco schools lost more students than any other district in the state. The enrollment drops are happening all over the district, but it's worse on the east side, shown in red on the map there. The district already closed 2 schools in Arvada, Fitzmaurice and Allendale elementary schools. Some elementary schools are getting so small, they're actually combining 2 grades into 1 class.
A lot of times we associate, small schools or small classrooms are a good thing. But when you don't have peers to interact with, when you're in a classroom that doesn't, or a grade that doesn't have enough students to sustain itself, you might be in a 3-4 split, a 1-2 split. And also that means that you have one teacher teaching both grades and that teacher doesn't have anyone to collaborate with.
The district will talk about the enrollment data at a meeting tomorrow night. 1 month from today, the superintendent is supposed to have a recommendation for which schools to close. The district will then hold public hearings on that. The final board will vote on school closures in November. A third King Soopers worker is suing the store's union, claiming UFCW Local 7 illegally fined her for working through this year's strike. A National Legal Defense Foundation filed a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board, which handles investigations into unfair labor practices. The complaint claims that the worker hasn't been part of the union for more than a decade, but they say that UFCW still threatened to fine her more than $4,000 for crossing the picket lines earlier this year. We were the first to report in April that the union was issuing fines of $250 a day for employees who worked through that strike. That's more than most workers would make in a day. For the first time today, survivors of the Marshall Fire could sign up to receive thousands of dollars of donated dollars to help them rebuild. The county started its Recovery Navigator program today. It'll connect survivors with social services, recovery plan, and guidance, and critically and money for reconstruction. At first, navigators will just have access to funds donated through the Community Foundation Boulder County. But program managers expect to distribute state funds when they become available this fall.
Our hope is that they'll all be accessible through the same application, so that if you got rebuilding dollars now, when those other dollars became available, we'd be able to use the same application so that you wouldn't have to keep filling out forms and providing documentation on an ongoing basis.
We have more details about how survivors can connect with Recovery Navigators on 9news.com. You donated more than $2 million to Community Foundation Boulder County through our Word of Thanks microgiving campaign. Last week, you helped make sure Coloradans who need help with groceries get support. Kyle has an update on this week's Word of Thanks campaign.
Thank you so much for your generous support of the nonprofit Grow House this week. You helped them reach their goal of raising more than $25,000 to add more families to their no-cost food boxes that they drop off for families in Denver's Globeville, El Ria, and Swansea neighborhoods. Families working long hours just to make ends meet. Through 111 consecutive weeks of your Word of Thanks campaigns, you have raised more than $9.2 million for Colorado's small to mid-sized nonprofits. Have an idea of who we can help next? Email next@9news.com, and I'll be back on Wednesday with my next idea.
This stretch of street is notorious for sinkholes. The usual culprit says this time it's not them. The baby formula shortage is still a big problem, and Colorado's one of the states having the hardest time.
And he really loved 5 points. I mean, that was just second nature to him, 5 points.
And remembering the man who saved a neighborhood and left a legacy of revitalization next. Oxford Avenue in Sheridan just cannot catch a break. It's been caving in since 2015 and did so again this weekend. Back in 2015, a sinkhole along that road swallowed a police SUV. In 2018, another sinkhole took out another SUV in nearly the same spot with a woman jumping out at the last second. A year later, in 2019, another sinkhole opened. Didn't need a car that time. In all three of those cases, a storm sewer line for the city of Inglewood that runs along Oxford was to blame. But they think that they've fixed that line now. So when the call came in this weekend about the 20-foot deep hole that opened along the same road in the same spot, Inglewood Public Works Director Maria DeAndrea thought, here we go again. This time was different.
I was definitely nervous driving in, let me tell you. So, because we've done so much to our line that runs through there. Was further south and it runs parallel to Oxford. And I'm like, how could this have happened? But it wasn't on our line. This was an old manhole, most likely, that didn't have a cover on it. And so the void was basically over a manhole. And then the dirt washed away over time.
DeAndrea says they believe that old manhole may have been filled with dirt during the expansion of Santa Fe back in the 90s. Inglewood has worked to reinforce its storm sewer line in that area to make sure it doesn't cave in the road anymore. In fact, if you pay a stormwater utility fee in Inglewood, you're paying a bit more lately to fund improvements to that line along Oxford and for a new detention pond in that area meant to stop stormwater from overwhelming that system. Tonight's next question comes from Janice in Littleton. Janice noticed we haven't talked much about the baby formula shortage lately. She wants to know, has the problem been resolved? Is supply back to normal? Unfortunately, Janice, the shortage is still dragging on. Data from a market research firm found more than 1 in 5 formula products have been out of stock for 6 weeks. That group found that for the first week of July, Colorado had the 5th lowest amount of formula in the country. Our neighbors in Utah, Wyoming, and Kansas were worse. An FDA commissioner told a Senate subcommittee last week that baby formula companies are finally making more formula than families are buying, but it'll take a while to make up for several months of shortages. The Mother's Milk Bank in Arvada is helping families who can't find formula by processing donated milk. They say that they've had a 20% increase in donations, but demand is up too. It's coming from places that don't usually need help.
While we have had a wonderful increase in milk coming in from the community, we've also had an increase in need from hospitals that maybe would have used the same formula that there's a shortage on. They need additional donor milk too.
Ever wonder why something's happening? Send us your next questions. Use the hashtag HeyNext or email next@9news.com.
I know it's Monday, but can we talk about yesterday? The clouds, the cooler temperatures, the rain. It was so refreshing. We finally broke that 90-degree stretch we were in. Then, of course, today arrived. The sunshine was out and 90s once again. 92 officially out at DIA. Little cooler off to the eastern plains with some more 80s up into the high country. The storms, they're out there. However, they're primarily across far south central Colorado toward Colorado Springs. You zoom in here to the metro area and it's going to be a pretty quiet night for us. Tomorrow morning, the sunshine is back. The storms will be isolated throughout tomorrow afternoon, about 4 or 5 o'clock, maybe 1 or 2, gusting through downtown Denver. Otherwise, most of the action will shift off to the eastern plains. This ridge of high pressure is now anchored off to the Pacific Northwest. They're the ones dealing with the heat, but you see this area of low pressure, some of that cooler air will be making its way back into Colorado as we look ahead toward the end of the week. Temps tomorrow into the upper 80s, lower 90s for eastern Colorado, 90 with isolated storms Wednesday, and then the 70s are back. Widespread storms Thursday. We'll kick off the month of August with more 90s and more sunshine.
His vision saved a neighborhood.
A good-spirited person that cared about the community.
Friends remember the man who helped redevelop a piece of Denver's history. Next. In the 1980s, Carl Bourgeois had a vision to redevelop the neighborhood that he loved. 5 Points was a gem. He helped restore, and the community that lived there are thankful for it. Last week, Bourgeois died at the age of 71. And 2 of his closest friends sat down with photojournalist Byron Reed to talk about the legacy he leaves.
And he really loved 5 Points. I mean, that was just second nature to him, 5 Points. My name is Peggy Wortham. So his family and our family, we've been friends for a long time now. And he was just like a brother, you know, a big brother that I never had. It was really nice that, you know, someone from our community was able to do as well as he did in 5 Points. He took the area that we knew as Zone Cab and turned it into an office building. He also owned the Rossonian, where back in the day, 40s and 50s, all the musicians and entertainers, they'd come to town. And they'd sing downtown, but then they'd come to the Rossonian and stay and play for free for the neighborhood people. He was just always caring, giving, real quiet. And as much as he had, you know, he didn't boast about it. If you didn't know about it, you know, you didn't know. But he was just always there for everybody.
A good-spirited person that cared about the community. I'm Alberta Simmons. I'm a civil rights activist. I'm the president of Simmons Foundation for Youth and Change. I really appreciated him for taking some time with me. You know, when things were not going well, I would go to him and talk to me. He would talk to me like a brother, older brother, and he would show me love.
He told us, you know, that he was having some health problems and wanted us to, you know, make sure that, you know, we knew what was going on with him. My heart was just like, you know, a big hole, you know, and still to the day, I still can't believe he's gone.
And I was, you know, heartbroken. I started praying, you know, for that brother. Pay it forward. I would think that would be part of his legacy, that he wanted next brother to pay it forward.
We loved him, and we truly, truly miss him, and never, never forget him.
Beautiful brother, beautiful man, a beautiful family man, and I hope that God is pleased with Carl's work.
According to his family, Bourgeois died after a lengthy battle with a heart disease. It's a sign of confusion for any poor souls who try to park where they shouldn't. Next. It's a sign of misdirection and confusion. You can't park here, go left, but pull forward and then stay right. If that gives you a headache, perhaps that's on purpose. Colleen Atsuka shared this sign of the misdirection in front of a medical office building at Hamden and Logan. Poor people just going to the doctor, getting all confused. Do you have a sign that makes you chuckle or get confused? Email us next@9news.com. You can also use the hashtag HeyNext. Not much feedback tonight. David wants to know, he went to high school with a guy named Steve Steger in 1977. That's when they graduated. I'd love to meet him.